have our flag salute. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our roll call has Commissioners Ward, Sorber, Kaiser, myself, and is Brian on or not?
Somebody's in the waiting room there, could be him.
Somebody with a 503 number just entered.
Okay, any additions to the agenda? Hearing none?
Commissioner, did you want to talk about the shuffling of the Blue Heron?
Yeah, we're gonna, when we get to new business, we're going to move the Blue Heron, approving that lease, acting on that lease, up right behind Pacific, Columbia Pacific Biorefinery's report, so it would be second on the new business for today. Okay.
Commissioner Fawcett has about.
That must be him.
Okay, and Commissioner Fawcett. We go through the wonders of modern telecommunications. So I would entertain a motion to approve minutes of June 12th, 2024.
I move to approve the minutes from June 12th, 2024. Consent agenda A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, great. Comments from the public? Do we have anyone that would like to make a public comment? Good evening, Brady.
I just would like to say, thank you for continuing, even though Brian's not here, I guess he's online. Continuing to have the 6 o'clock meetings. It seemed that if they were going away, I appreciate that you have fulfilled that commitment and that you're continuing to do it. And I appreciate that you have them. And then the second comment I wanted to talk about is the DEQ. There's no one that is more interested in having an environmental cleanup than me. But this should not be a generational thing. I mean, it should not be something that we have to pass on to our children. It's been decades. So to the DEQ people that are here, tell us what they need to do and let's get it done. It is ridiculous that it has drug on this long. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's been what, 30 years? Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Brady. Any other comments, either online or here in the audience?
You can let them know to raise their hand too, if they're online.
Yeah.
I don't see any raised hands.
No raised hands. Okay. So we'll continue to new business, Columbia Pacific Biorefinery quarterly update from Kevin Jones. Would you please come up here, Kevin?
He's on the Zoom.
Line. There you are.
I didn't think I saw.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for letting me address the commission today. And good evening to everyone. I'm here to replace Dan Lockett and giving this report. And you'll see my face and hear my voice giving this report from this point on, as Dan retired here several months ago. So the Global Pacific Biorefinery quarterly report goes as follows. In terms of operations, we're employing 22 people at the site and continuing to handle renewable diesel and conducting transloading operations there, which have been ongoing since 2021. During the time, or since the time we started the business, we've handled 13,632 rail cars at the site, which is the equivalent of 112 unit trains. And we've loaded 65 vessels at the site since we began this business in 2021, all without any incident spills or recorded incidents. We'll get into that a little deeper in our safety and environmental report. At the site, we've had 0 contractor injuries or employee injuries to our employees, therefore resulting in 0 lost time injuries at the site. And resulting in 0 recordable injuries. So our TRR at the site is another nice big 0. We've had no near miss or at-risk incidents reported at the site, and have worked 2,432 consecutive days without an injury, and 4,732 days without any lost time accidents. So our safety and our environmental operations are excellent at the site. All required environmental tasks and activities, updates, and are complete, and our regulatory compliance is completely up to date. In terms of inspections, we've had a lot of inspections at the facility, and Dan's reported on this in the past. We've had a total of 268 inspections at the site. 134 have been with the FRA, 30 have been with the EPA, ODOT, and/or Washington DOE, 1 DOE inspection from the Department of Energy, 1 inspection from the Department of Agriculture. We've had 56 U.S. Coast Guard inspections at the site since we took control, and 43 third-party inspections, primarily with the state fire marshal. During our time there, we've had 3 U.S. Customs and Immigration inspections, and we're glad to report that 100% of the unit trains that we've received on site, which is a grand total of 498, have been properly marked and placarded. And so we've had no FRA infractions, and 100% of the cars that we've released from the facility have been properly placarded and inspected prior to release to the railroad. Regards to permit status, all of our federal, state, and local permits are in place and up to date. And at the dock, we're working with the port and other interested parties on finalizing a maintenance plan. One of the challenges to finalizing the maintenance plan is we're also working with the port to make required improvements at some point here to meet the new seismic standards that are required for facilities such as ours in the state of Oregon. And we're working closely with the port on that goal of making those improvements. And the port is working with an engineering firm to finalize or get closer to finalizing plans for that work. In regards to expansion projects, my role at the facility, I was hired in November of last year. I have about 34 years of experience on the Columbia River operating and managing marine terminals, pipeline operations, and railroad operations. And the company hired me as the Senior Director of Business Development to work on finding additional business for the facility. And so that's my primary focus, that and working with the port and other local entities there in Columbia County to make sure that everybody's aware of what we are doing. And we continue to try to move forward with expanding the facility in regards to our renewable diesel, ethanol, and we're looking at the possibility of handling renewable diesel feedstocks. So those would be various types of vegetable oils, et cetera, that are primarily used in the development of renewable fuels. So that concludes, I think I ripped right through that. That concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Jones?
Yes, I have one. Kevin, nice to meet you. I'm Nancy Ward. And I was out at Port Westward on the 19th and just doing a quick tour through there. I don't think I've ever seen so many railroad cars. And I didn't know if I was seeing double or if you actually had more than one unit train of cars in there at that particular time.
Well, you're very observant and the answer is yes, there were more than one unit train worth of rail cars there. And the reason for that is the refinery that we receive renewable diesel from in Dickinson, North Dakota, was in turnaround, which is a term that they use for scheduled maintenance. And the facility was down for several weeks performing that maintenance. And we became one of the places in the supply chain to store cars while the facility was idled. And so that's that's our explanation on why you have so many cars there at that time.
Well, I could tell it was quite a challenge for what you were trying to accomplish. And I couldn't help but think, gosh, I hope you don't have to go through this very often.
We don't. We were prepared for it. It was scheduled, and coincidentally, our company operates a rail car storage and transfer facility in Stampede, North Dakota. And that facility had about 3.5 unit trains of Marathon rail cars that service this supply chain stored at that facility. So while they were idle, both of our terminals, plus probably some other facilities, were holding their rail cars during this turnaround.
How long is the maintenance schedule for, Kevin, do you know?
It was supposed to be some period of about 2 weeks. To be honest with you, the refiners are usually in marathons this way too, fairly protective of their detailed information. I did receive confirmation, however, the other day from one of their employees that I work very closely with that the turnaround occurred and the facility was back up and running. Rail cars are being pulled from our site and headed to North Dakota to be loaded again. And the turnaround was successful and was completed on time. So my understanding that it was roughly scheduled for about 2 weeks. And refineries usually do this every 3 to 4 years, depending on the type of crude that they run or the type of products that they run. Obviously, this facility is running vegetable oils that are available, in the Central Plains and and in that market to produce renewable fuel.
I was just gonna say that I believe Friday or Saturday, the next trains will start moving again.
How many, Kevin, how many cars could you hold at one given time?
Oh, that's a good question. And since I'm a rookie, I don't want to stick my neck out and throw a number at you, but I
It's
believe
about 3.
I was going
about
to say
3 minutes.
it's roughly
Oh,
3
really?
unit trains.
Yeah, the Port lead and the CPBR lead can each hold about 1, and then the Beaver Spur might be able to get 1, maybe. Pretty tight.
Yeah.
And they probably store a lot inside the fence too, I'm guessing.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't attend in person. I'll plan on doing that at the next meeting.
Love to have you. Thank you.
Hey, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, the resolution 2024-15, we're going to discuss the lease approving considering the Blue Heron septic lease. Amy?
I'm in the hot seat, but I'm not alone tonight.
That's
I
right.
invited Spencer to join me. So as many of you know, Blue Heron Septic and Drain has been serving this community for many years. They're a staple business, very reliable reputation, and they're growing. Yeah, and so we have an opportunity and a resolution in front of you under consideration to sign a lease for the Railroad Avenue property. It's a 5-year lease, 2 renewals. Happy to answer any questions about any of the details around the actual lease itself. Spencer's also here to introduce himself and answer any questions that you have about the business.
My name is Spencer DeShaw, and I am the owner of Blue Heron Septic, as well as St. Helens Scappoose Septic, just acquired. It's not going to blend. It's going to remain separate, as St. Helens Scappoose Septic has a following and has had for many years. And we're not going to disturb that. We're going to leave it just the same. We brought on the employees. So we're just going to pump a few more tanks, so to speak. But as far as me, I'm a longtime citizen here in Columbia County. Been here for a very long time. Graduated St. Helens, went to school here, and inevitably raised my kids and didn't stray too far from the apple tree, so to speak. And would very much like to lease the property down at the end of Railroad Avenue. It really suits our kind of business model. We're just parking trucks. We don't do any maintenance on any of it. We just need to get them out of the rain and the weather and kind of have a home base to show up in the morning and kind of line everybody out, get them out the door, and then take the trucks in the evening. And that is basically all we'd be doing. Eating a few blackberries. I noticed down there the other day, they're ripe and they are all over the place. I ate until I had to run home.
So we think this is a good fit for the site and yeah.
And how many trucks do you run?
Blue Heron has 2 pump trucks and 2 service trucks, a van and a pickup. And St. Helens Septic has 1 pump truck and 1 service van. I believe we could probably get them all in the covered parking outside and set up a little office in there and kind of have a home base. It works wonderful for us. It really does. It's a beautiful piece of ground. I
Notice he didn't say beautiful building.
On the river's edge. Back building. And you know, from a little distance, it looks good.
The further away you get, the better it looks. Yeah.
We are. We'll clean it up and we'll shine up the edges a little bit and we'll make it nice again.
And the trucks are going to be empty when they come back, right?
Yes, nothing comes back to site. It's the law. I've got to take it from the address to the dump site, which is water treatment here in St. Helens is our primary site for both companies. We also have the ability to dump in Rainier.
But what do you do if you get called out when that service isn't available, like it?
As far as the dumping service,
Yeah.
I have 24-hour availability at water.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we had to work that out because we have a lot of emergencies and rarely is it between 8 to 5. I don't know what that is.
No, it's never an emergency.
7:30.
Yeah.
But no, we have worked that out with St. Helens Water Treatment and they let us come down after hours.
Right.
Yes, nothing comes back to the site. We are not a storage facility. We are a home, as they say.
Sounds great.
Any other questions?
Approval of resolution 2024-15.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next on our agenda is the DEQ.
Now you got the airport.
No, that's gonna be at the end. That's gonna end up being at the end.
Good evening, commissioners. Tonight, Kevin Perret and Katie Dougherty are here from DEQ. Kevin and Katie are DEQ's managers responsible for the Pope and Talbot site at Railroad Avenue. Briefly recap, the sawmill and wood treatment facility operated at this site from 1912 to 1960. Pope and Talbot purchased the facility in 1938 and continued to operate the creosote wood treatment facility until 1960. The port purchased the property in 1963 for $60,000. The contamination we are discussing occurred before the port owned the Pope and Talbot property. In 1995, Pope and Talbot and the port signed a legal agreement with DEQ that called for both parties to complete a remedial investigation and feasibility study. However, Pope and Talbot went bankrupt in 2008, and responsibility for the site and cleanup was left with the people of Columbia County. Last September, DEQ issued its record of decision, or ROD, that details the cleanup that must be done. During 2022, that was prepared, the estimated cost of the cleanup was roughly $22 million. As part of this process, DEQ would like the port to enter a new legal agreement that would clean up the Pope and Talbot site and includes 100 years of monitoring. Given the costs involved, our economic development mission, obligations to upgrade the Beaver Dock, along with our need to maintain our other port properties, we have concerns about the port's ability to fund any obligations we agreed to. As you know, this is a complex issue, and we've been working well with DEQ the last several years and have gained some momentum. Kevin and Katie are here now to discuss the next phase and how we can move forward on the cleanup. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you. It's kind of hard to follow up with Elliot's intro there, but my name is Katie Dougherty. I'm the DEQ Cleanup Project Manager for the Pope and Talbot site. And this is
Kevin Pratt. I manage one of the cleanup sections in our Northwest Region office. I have a staff of 14, mostly project managers, 2 toxicologists, 3 environmental engineers, and 2 hydrogeologists. So I'm the manager in charge of Pope and Talbot site, along with the other 2 high priority cleanup sites in Scappoose Bay, the Armstrong site and the former Boise site, which is now Office Max.
So as Elliot mentioned, last year we hit a major milestone by selecting the remedial actions that need to occur to address the contamination at the property. Our vehicle for doing that is issuing a record of decision, which we call a ROD. So what comes next is doing the design work associated with implementing that cleanup work, and then also implementing it. And then once we implement it, we need to have long-term, we call it operation and maintenance. So basically ensuring the work that we put in to be protective stays there, it stays protective long-term. So as Elliot mentioned, the estimated cost is $22 million. From experience, that's kind of an engineering estimate at the time the ROD was issued. With the costs increasing post-COVID and every year we wait, they're going to go up. So it's probably going to be a chunk more than, 22 million. So then our topic is, okay, DEQ would like to enter into a new consent order with the port for the remedial design and the implementation phases of work. However, and we sent a draft over to the port, and Elliot came back and, oh, great, you're putting up the map. And Elliot came back and said the port had concerns about signing an agreement that had financial implications where you felt you couldn't fund a $22 million cleanup. So that has kind of put us in this position where we're stuck right now and we need to figure out a way to move forward. And so we've been talking about kind of what I called a funding agreement that we could incorporate into the consent order. So it's kind of like, how can we working together try to figure out how to come up with the money to fund this work? So we've outlined a few topics that we think have to be addressed in this. We would need the port to complete a new ability to pay analysis. That would include providing your financial documents to us. What's your health? What's your commitments? You know, where you are with your financial ability to pay for a $22 million cleanup, because that would allow us to crack back open into our orphan funds if you have limited ability to pay or no ability to pay. But we do need to redo that evaluation for current financial health. We also have indicated we need the port to work with the two insurance companies to secure payments of the amounts that the insurance companies are on the hook to pay for cleanup. I understand one has been successfully settled and the discussions are just starting with the other company. And if that all goes well, that might come up with like $6 million. So that's one little chunk. We also would like the port to agree to actively pursue potential funding with EPA or Business Oregon. Those could be low interest, favorable loans, grants, combinations, or funding. But the port as a property owner would have to be the entity that looks into those. DQ already has advocated for and secured about $5 million of orphan funds. This is funding we as an agency get through bond sales. And we are advocating that, you know, maybe if once the ability to pay analysis is done, maybe we could crack open and get some more money and kind of, it might be one piece at a time, but try to get some money together.
So it wouldn't be the full 5 million.
So that's what we're trying to talk about with this funding agreement is we need to do the ability to pay, but from everything that Elliot has told me, I think you'll probably be found to have no ability to pay or limited ability to pay. You do have a levy that you're not currently collecting on, so that might be why it comes back with, okay, you have some ability that you're not fully realizing. But in some way, I think from everything Elliot's told me, provided we can document that, I don't think there's an expectation that we would expect the port to pay the full 22 million or 30 million or however much it ends up to be. But we need to work collaboratively because, you know, DEQ can't pay the full 22 million either. So, you know, it's kind of going to be a patchwork quilt of funding. But that's what we're trying to put together in language that we could put in this consent order so that the port is comfortable, it's not overreaching its financial commitments. DEQ is comfortable, we're not overreaching ours. And whatever kind of agreement we kind of frame out, we're going to have to take the leadership, meaning Kevin, probably up as high as the directors to get approval for this plan as well. So we're trying to think very creatively and collaboratively. Thank you for that. So that's where we are with the funding. Before I go on to the next topic, do you guys have any questions about this concept of working together to figure out some kind of framework for a funding agreement?
I just need to know a lot more about it, but I can tell you that I am never, ever going to vote to enter any kind of agreement where I don't know the top side.
Sure.
So that's, I mean,
yeah.
What I need some kind of annual not to exceed thing. I mean, I think if we do the ability to pay, which I was through one of those about 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, 2008.
It came back pretty severe, but we were able to go through that and find an amount that we could reliably budget that we were still able to operate and but we would like to see that site cleaned up for sure, but signing any kind of agreement for the word millions in it. But without knowing exactly the annual limit, it just seems irresponsible.
So I think the funding would be something, the agreement would be something more like the port agrees to dedicate all insurance from the two policies. And as either you do a settlement and give the money to us directly and we hold it in a specific account just for that site, or you hold it in an account just for work on Open Talbot. That you agree to actively seek funding from Business Oregon and EPA. And if you are successful in those efforts, that funding is dedicated and will be used towards Open Talbot. So it's not gonna be so much, the port is gonna pay $10 million or 1 million a year. It's gonna be more like you agreeing to obligate funding that is already technically should be for that site. The insurance is on that site. It should be used for the cleanup of that site and to actively pursue funding. So it's going to be more of that kind of agreement.
The devil will be in the details a little, because you guys.
Oh, absolutely.
You say grants and low interest loans. The loans is
Oh, yeah.
obligations, and obligations would fall for me under
I
that.
see exactly what you're saying. Right. So we have to figure out or work with Business Oregon for, it might be something where if we determine you do have some limited ability to pay, that would be your cap, right?
Service, is that debt service what you're saying then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that does interest me. It would be an accomplishment to see this thing finally put to bed, but.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. I totally like low interest loan. You have to pay them back. But they can get really creative too. And some of the loans I've seen come out of Business Oregon, they kind of don't get triggered till you sell the property. You never sell the property, they don't get triggered.
Leave it all day long.
Yeah. So absolutely, the devil's in the details. I totally agree. But the first critical piece that we need to do is the ability to pay. Because without that, we don't know if you have no ability to pay because you're upside down or you have ability to pay. What does that look like?
It just bears reminding everyone that port by owning it has done nothing to contaminate that or to delay cleaning it up. And frankly, not you folks, but the DEQ from the time I've been on there has made a lot of changes in direction and by my way of thinking, failed to meet their regulatory obligation to get that taken care of while Pope and Talbot was still viable. So all of that means that now the taxpayers of the small port district get footed with the bill that we didn't cause and we didn't do anything to make worse. So just mindful that if they end up at the end of the day with a piece of property that can be used for economic development and a cleaner environment, that's great if it's within our ability, but that's about where we're at.
I have a question, and it may have been done in 08. What is a cleanup gonna look like?
Okay.
What is, I know things have changed a lot, probably from 08 to current, so.
Well, I think the biggest change was the discovery of contamination in the water, which is one of the things that took the longest to kind of like figure out. Okay, so see where it says Upland Area 1? So that area, it'll be an impervious surface cap, like an asphalt cap or something like that. And then we're gonna put in a permeable reactive barrier wall along the coast, along the riverbank, along the cove area where you see the product coming out. And then in the cove area itself, we're gonna do some riverbank work, near shore removal in the water. So remove as much of the contaminated sediment, take it off site for disposal, and then we'll put in a reactive cap for the residuals in the cove area. So area 1 dock, we're gonna remove the pilings and then install an armor reactive cap in there. Dock 2, which is behind the map or the video windows there, remove the pilings, bank work, remove as much as we can near the shore, offsite disposal, a reactive cap in water. And then Upper Milton Creek, that'll be regrading the stream bank, some limited removal with offsite disposal and armor reactive cap. So that's in the 5 different areas. That's what it'll look like. Most of it'll be in water.
Understood, and just because I'm not familiar, and I'm sure obviously you guys sub this out to somebody to do this, Restricap or a company that's big into normally doing.
That is topic number 2 that I want to talk to you
I
about.
don't want to rush things then. Okay. So would we ever be able to have bank to water access when that armor cap is on there? Or whatever that looks like?
So that is a challenging question. I don't know that we would want you to put in a dock in the area or access in the area where we're putting the caps. But you do have like a width in between the areas that maybe you could target doing.
I mean, I'm very familiar with the area or downstream of area number 2 here, more towards the mill outlet there.
Yeah,
Cause that's a nice deep water channel there and, it's a hope and dream of mine. I know we're off topic, but to put a lot in there someday or something like that.
it is important because you can do a redevelopment now. I mean, we've had multiple times where people have potentially purchased it and come and we can work through the liability issues with the prospective purchaser. That's not a problem. The area Upland 2 area's already gotten a further action letter. So, you know, I know we talked about building it up, putting the sediment, from the
Dredge spoils, yeah.
the dredge spoils from the marina there to bring it up a little bit more. But you know, even like the dock 2 area, since we are kind of doing a removal, I mean, ideally it would still be good to stay out of there, but if we had to, you know, but ideally it would be targeting the areas in between.
Sure. Okay, that was kind of one of my main questions. And I'll let you lead with your, when you go into who you use. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Burden is you're showing questions down the road, we're gonna be used, you see any restrictions on use of that upland area 1 from that asphalt cap up. Certainly won't be able to bore or something, but.
So no, I mean, there will be institutional controls on the property because there is a cap, you know, there. But it's the kind of thing where it's gonna be, okay, if there's an asphalt cap, the restriction is you maintain it. You break it, you fix it. You know, if we have to keep the monitoring wells, it'll be making sure they don't damage those, or if they do, they replace them. So it's the kind of restrictions that have to do with just like basic maintenance, really. I don't really see any like thou shalt not do this kind of restrictions. It's more like,
It's kind of brainstorming, the more viable that property is. I would even be willing to see in the funding agreement, some kind of revenue sharing mechanism that, so we all want to get it producing revenue.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know about the revenue agreement from our end. That would be different. I've done a lot where properties have been sold and anything outside of the entity's costs get paid to DEQ for our outstanding costs, because we are required by law to cost recovery. So obviously, we would like to get as much of our orphan money back as we could if we're gonna spend 10 to 15 million on this property, which that's a lot of money for us, because our bond sales are usually 5 million.
I think how much it is for us.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. I guess what I'm trying to convey to you is it is quite a commitment on our part as well. It's not a small commitment for us to try to fund this project, because we don't have those kind of dollars either. So.
And the other thing is you have 2 other projects in this county.
Yeah, I'm
Where Mike,
excited, and I work on both of them. But yeah, and we'll be seeing work at the Boise and water here. They're hoping to do their work in water season that's currently going on in the fall. So you'll see some work there. And
So that's sampling work, not cleanup.
no, I think they're, yeah.
Sampling.
Is that sampling? Well, they're working really hard towards implementing that, because their rod came out the year before Pope and Talbot, but Armstrong's gonna have a huge cleanup over the next 4 years. A lot of work.
So all of us are going to be searching for funds. We're going to be going to Connect Oregon. We're going to be going to you. We're going to be, how much can the state of Oregon afford to clean up?
Well, so Boise is going to be funded by Office Max. That is not coming out of our pocket at all. That is totally being paid by the responsible party, which is whatever Office Max is called now, Office Max Boise, whatever. And Armstrong is going to be largely paid out of settlement funds that were secured from Armstrong, Kaiser? No.
Kaiser Gypsum and Owens Corning, the three responsible parties at that site.
So both of those.
About $80 million.
Yeah, that's the largest settlement ever. Oh, okay. So, and we are planning on doing a $50 million, what we call an interim removal action measure, an IRAM. We're just starting the design phase. We got all the data that we needed to do that, and we're expecting to go out. It'll be a DAS, Department of Administrative Service procurement for that contract, for that contractor next year. And then it'll be implemented over to Work Windows. So over the next 3 years. Well, yeah, so Pope and Talbot is the creative funding.
The true.
Solutions. Yeah.
I should also point out, commissioners, if you don't already know, that the site is in a floodplain too. So any development we would do would be trying to lift the site, I'm guessing.
I think.
How does that affect the barrier?
I don't think it really affects it at all. I think we'll have to take that into account for design.
Like if
It's in the ground,
Something.
so it's already in the ground. So I think as long as we engineer it for when it gets flooded occasionally, it won't be an issue, but.
That's what I worried about, that there is, in real high water, there's a lot of velocity.
Yeah. Honestly, I think your floodplain issue is going to be more of a redevelopment issue than anything else, but.
Ryan, Commissioner Fawcett, do you have any questions?
No questions, all good information. My only comment would be, I have a real tough time telling the public that we should levy a tax to pay for this, because our constituents had nothing to do with the pollution. So I just kind of want to put that out there in regards to future discussion around ability to pay.
Okay, so the other topic I wanted to talk to you about is, so typically if you were Boise or Armstrong or whatever, as you've done to date, you would sub out the work. You would hire a contractor like Kurt, who's been here before, and they would hire all the necessary subs to implement work. The work to both design and implement this is going to be substantial. So whether you're hiring it all out or whether you have to follow the same procurement rules we do and do the large scale procurement in-house and have somebody review it. But the other opportunity you have is if you want to work with DEQ, to have DEQ with our subcontractors implement the work and take that off your plate. It would look something like, okay, we can invoice you for the 6 million. And I don't know what the final insurance number is going to be. I'm just using 6 million. We can bill you up to the 6 million for that insurance. If you did secure funding from Business Oregon or EPA, we could bill you for that money. And then the rest we would be towards orphan, and you wouldn't see that, but we would be in charge of implementing the work. So that is something if you want to consider taking that off your plate. If we're funding a large part of it, we'd probably be more comfortable doing it ourselves, but I just want to put that out there for consideration.
I'm assuming there's a few companies you guys are go-to.
We have 3 on-call contractors that we do a procurement every 5 years. Currently, it's Small Foster Nolangi, Apex Companies, and GSI is doing the Armstrong work. So for efficiency, we might advocate for them to do Pope and Talbot. They're like Kurt with geoengineers or environmental consultants. They do the heavy core design work and all that. we would then go out to subcontract like the actual excavation contractor or the contractor that's doing the in-water work. Any subs that you need, just like you guys would, so. But it is something for consideration, considering, I mean, you already know how much work it took for Elliott to deal with all of this. It's gonna be quite a bit more effort. Even if you hire a contractor to do it, it's gonna be pretty time consuming for your staff. So I just want to throw that out there as a possibility. No decision has to be made right now. The third topic would be just we need to get unstuck and we need to try to commit to some time to try to get some kind of resolution hammered out so we can move the project forward, because we've been a little stuck here. And we just need to break free and move forward. So I'd really like to see us in a position by the end of the year where we have something hammered out in the consent order, get the consent order signed and get us to be able to move forward if possible. So.
Do you think that's a strong possibility on your end of things, or,
Yeah, I mean, maybe Kevin can speak more about the getting leadership buy-in to that, but until we have the ability to pay and we have kind of at least the loose framework of what we think would work for both parties, it's kind of hard to move forward, but.
Yeah, so Pete and I, we have to sell this to a couple layers above us. And we do have an earmark for $5 million. That's somewhat tentative. But if we do need to get more money, and maybe even to lock in that 5 million, that has to go to the legislature as part of DEQ's budget proposal, first to the governor's office, and then it becomes part of the governor's proposed budget that goes to the legislature, and then it gets voted and approved and all that. So this is, at the end of the day, it's a political decision. And having a funding agreement in place with the port is going to bolster our case as we try to move this forward and get it in DEQ's budget proposal for what's going into the next biennium, starting in July of 2025, and then even beyond that. And then to the extent that we can share our, lobbying, for lack of a better word. I mean, DEQ, try not to use that word, but I think it is going to be a heavy lift to try to get as much money as we can out of the legislature. I think we have all the pieces in place. This is the right kind of community to do it. This is, economically depressed. This is a public entity that has all these other obligations. You're left holding the bag on a highly contaminated site. We have a record of decision in place. The only thing that is preventing us from implementing that right now is money.
And once you start, how long do you project that it would take?
Depends on the money. If I had 30 million tomorrow, it would probably take us 4 years. And probably 3, but we are restricted by the work windows. So that kind of, you don't get a full 12 months, right? So, I mean, if I had 30 million, I know what we're supposed to do. I'd hire some really smart engineers. We get the design knocked out. We get the data gaps that we need in the first year, second year. So maybe 2 years to do data gaps and design and procurement. And then maybe we could do it in one work window, because we're really not talking about a lot of work. I think that taking out the piles are going to be probably the most challenging part of it. And we can do the upland work any time of the year. So that's not restricted to work window. So it really, if we have, it's going to be the money. And since it's going to be a little piecemeal, so I have 5 million, and if we got the 6 million insurance, that's like 10 million. So maybe we could knock out the Cove area 2 dock and Upper Milton Creek.
We could easily be talking about 10 years.
It depends on money.
Yeah, and a good example is the McCormick and Baxter creosote site in St. John's. As a project I actually managed. We completed the sediment remedy design in 2 years. And the construction, we got most of the construction done in one summer. We had a little bit of follow-up that we did the second summer. One of the challenges that we'll have on this project is the permitting. This is going to require a Army Corps of Engineers 404 Clean Water Act permit because it's a removable fill. Army Corps of Engineers is probably going to have to do a consultation with the Natural Resource Services, National Marine Fisheries Service, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. You know, we can only influence that so much. And so there are a few things that are out of our control in terms of driving the schedule.
We are doing that on Armstrong right now. We have a subcontractor that specializes in this kind of permitting. So we're already going through that for Armstrong. So we know what we're doing and we know what we're getting ourselves into. So, but I will just say again, the truly limiting factor on this is it's the money. So it may be where we could knock out, you know, 3 of the areas, and then we have to go to the drawing board and figure out how to come up with the next pot of money. So it's going to be a little piece.
It's been in all of this that we get into it, but we're going at a pace where inflation goes faster than our capacity to finish projects. And I don't know how, we've got to find some kind of control system. We can't control inflation, but we have to think about how that's going to work because, yeah.
Well, that's kind of why I was saying, even though a year ago, the estimate was 22 million, I say it's probably going to end up being 30 by the time it's done. Particularly since I've seen some significant cost increase since COVID. I mean, the construction costs are just crazy.
So hypothetically, what if we did nothing?
If you do nothing, and I don't want to scare you, but I could see EPA coming in and pushing for the Scappoose Bay to be a Superfund site. And you're not going to like that.
A Superfund station, much of the Willamette River is, and
they'll look to the port as a responsible party.
Yeah.
And from our experience, they're not quite as sensitive to these cost issues as we are.
I was actually just talking to them about the McCormick and Baxter site. I worked at a Shaver Transportation that was directly across from it. I'm very familiar with the EPA cleanup on the Willamette River. There's a lot of money in surveying and some of it's been cleaned up. Some of it is still needs a lot of work. So.
Yeah, EPA is pretty aggressive. The Portland Harbor Superfund site, the ROD estimated 1 billion. The responsible parties that have been working on remedial design, we're hearing that they see this as a $3 to $5 billion cleanup. McCormick and Baxter was 30 million in the early 2000s. And so certainly be 3 times that now, without any question, maybe be $100 million. And EPA will use their enforcement authority against the port. And if it's all of Scappoose Bay, that's going to impact the city's redevelopment plans. It's going to impact the marina. We are not supportive of a Superfund listing at all. And one of the ways that we're trying to prevent that is move these sites forward. We have records of decisions on Boise, on the Pope and Talbot site. We have a settlement, and we're moving into this interim remedial action on the Armstrong site. That makes it really difficult for EPA to list the site over DEQ's objection.
And the Yakima Nation has broached us with EPA. We've been fending them off for about 2 years now.
Right.
So
Wait, I'm not following.
Regarding,
so the Yakima Nation sent a letter to EPA about 2 years ago requesting EPA evaluates Scappoose Bay for Superfund listing.
Really?
And so we flat out told EPA we were not supportive of that and demonstrated all the work that we've been doing on these 3 primary sites. We are going to have to talk about the plywood, Multnomah plywood site at some point, but we don't want to divert focus off of Pope and Talbot. But, and it's not to like scare you or anything, because I mean, it's just more for an awareness that this site is a high priority. There are eyes on Scappoose Bay. And if the port chooses to do nothing, you will force DEQ into a position of having to look at enforcement action. And worst case would be if EPA decided to come in and,
Declare this, take it away from us.
yeah, which they
We'll lose
can
control.
do. They can essentially overfile on us and take it away.
And not that something we're looking to do, but this could be 20 years from now, could be 30, who knows, whenever EPA decides to.
It would be actually pretty soon.
Yeah.
Sooner than that.
I would imagine we have probably a 5-year window, best case.
That's okay.
Understood.
Help me understand what you're looking. We'll get the ability to pay, and then you'd like to see a funding agreement. But, and I'm hearing you say that, I mean, we've got insurance money for certain. Your $5 million is almost certain, or looking good.
Yeah, I have 5 million in the budget right now.
Would you want a phase, would you want a series of separate funding agreements as you do it, or one comprehensive one that we need to get figured out before we do anything?
Well, I think because the funding agreement language that I'm thinking of is gonna be a little non-specific in terms of, you know, we're asking for you to commit to look for funding.
More principles than numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking for the grants we commit to.
You're committing to pursue the last insurance company to the full extent to get a full settlement and dedicate those funds to Pope and Talbot. You're agreeing to go to Business Oregon and EPA and try to work out funding. And then, you know, based on ability to pay, we can know whether that has to be grants, loans, combination, whatever. It's just more about being on the same page with expectations and level of effort.
Like, could we possibly pledge a percentage of revenue that, I mean, as we do better, potentially that might go up and help get things, just an idea, is that?
That's a really good idea, particularly it could be something where it's like, you could pledge a percentage of revenue to be used towards state debt service on securing loans from Business Oregon. You can also agree to do a percentage of revenue towards an account that will be dedicated towards long-term maintenance costs of this stuff. You know, it's
Years, right?
forever. Yeah, it's not 100 years, it's forever. I mean, people like to tend to put a number on it, but I mean, you know, it's not gonna go away.
Don't worry, 100 years, you're not gonna have to worry about.
It's not gonna be my problem in 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But for me to agree, I agree with them, you do that in minutes. I just need to find a way for an attorney to give us something that says that we're not gonna get a bill that shuts the board down. Lays off half the staff.
Yeah.
So
Totally understand.
you can develop that kind of assurances and we're on the same page, we want that done.
So I think the first step though is that ability to pay information, which we had a really good discussion with your outside counsel and Bob yesterday about what that takes in terms of paperwork to get it started. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel and make it harder, so we're hoping it's documents you guys already easily can provide. Yeah, I think we just want to be really collaborative and creative, and you know, there's only so much I can agree to, because like the agreement, I'm sure you have this language too. It's like, you know, I can't agree to funding obligations outside a certain legislative cycle because, you know,
Sure.
I'm sure you have the same kind of language. So I think the lawyers can come up with language that we're comfortable with. I think we just need to be on the same page that this is the path that we want to go down. And then once we get a funding agreement, we need to have some discussion about who's going to implement the work, whether you guys want to do that with your contractors or you want DEQ to take that burden.
I'm hearing one funding agreement mostly rooted in principles and safety, if you call it. And then we could get started.
And when it comes down to the work, let's say, obviously, this goes out to bid, you guys have your in-house contractors. And there's a severity in a bid by which is not uncommon in a big project like that. I mean, obviously, you guys, let's say the port wanted to use an outside contractor. I know you guys are gonna be, for lack of words, have a lot of skin in the game money wise, so. How does that work when you vet a contractor to deem them, qualified to do something like this?
So it depends on the contractor. So if you're looking at like an environmental contractor that will do the actual design and all of that, that you usually get requests for qualification type thing versus the actual implementation, that's gonna be just pure bid line item cost with some type of qualification threshold, pass fails.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, and if DQ is implementing the work, given the size of the contract in the type, it may have to be, we would use our in-house contractors for design and oversight, but we may have to go through the Department of Administrative Services procurement, which is what we're having to do on Armstrong, so we'll be pros at it.
Just curious, I mean, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
The bulk of them.
sorry?
What is the bulk of the money? Where does it?
The bulk of the money will be the subcontractor that's actually doing the work in the water and building,
For the construction
reactive
work.
area. Yeah, the construction.
And one other question, on the contaminated debris, bank matter. Now, that has to go off site. I'm sure there's a designated site to go. Whereabouts is that around here that has to?
But it depends, it will depend if it's considered hazardous or not. If it's hazardous, it'll probably go to Arlington. If it's, we don't want it to be hazardous. It's very expensive if it's.
Yeah, that sounds like
If it's just like petroleum contaminated, because it's creosote and stuff like that, it could go to a lined landfill. So I don't know where the closest applicable one would be. We normally let the subcontractors pick that based on like some minimum requirements for the landfill type.
You guys set the criteria, the requirements where it has to go, and then they can bid from there. Got it, understood.
Yeah, because sometimes they have things where it's cheaper for them to go to a different landfill, even if there's one that's closer. So.
So
Transportation is going to be spending.
Any idea how long that would take once they actually start doing the actual work? What would you expect that timeline to be?
I mean, I think we're still restricted by the work windows for the in-water work. So I think we could get it done 1 to 2 work windows, do you
Yeah.
think? Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
You'd need more than one?
I think probably one.
Well, I'm gonna be conservative and say 2, just to set your expectations right,
Yeah, one of the challenges is the water depth. And
Yeah.
if you're in a tidal kind of wetlands environment like Armstrong, it's really
Oh.
difficult. It's too shallow to have a barge and it's too deep to have a truck. And that gets really challenging to work in that kind of environment.
One of the questions I have too, which is gonna make it very unique for a contractor, the cove there, which I'm sure was some type of log pond where they used to float logs in or whatever they used to do. That contaminated yellow piece there right at the mouth of Milton Creek, that really puts that's gonna make things a lot more interesting because.
That is not part of our areas that we are dealing with. That is not part of a priority area. You mean the one that's on?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yellow here.
Nope,
Okay.
we're not dealing with.
Okay, then disregard. Because that's all I was looking at was like, that's a whole nother thing right there, clean
Yeah,
up.
that would be definitely a whole other thing. So a lot of the criteria was driven by sheen, and sheen is a darker yellow, so that's where you're seeing the seeps, the creosote seeps and stuff. So that was the primary concern. And yeah, they've had, that is what we consider a data gap that we would, if we go out there to get our data gaps for design, we'll probably look at that a little bit harder. It hasn't risen to the level of we need to do something about it. It's more at the, that's kind of interesting. We should look at it a little bit more. but it is not part of the areas that are currently going to treat.
I know a little bit about constructions, that's why I'm
Yeah.
looking at it. I mean, all this other stuff is reachable with the long reach excavator type machine. And I was looking at that and I'm like, oh, that's a problem. So I was like, you're not.
I can add one thing and
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. The yellow areas, those still are contaminated.
Yeah.
And the remedy is for those to recover naturally through a technology called monitored natural recovery. So this will be something that you deal with a lot in Scappoose Bay. It's a natural sedimentation burial process, but it requires monitoring to make sure that it's working, that you don't have some flood event that comes in and scours it out or boats that scour it out. So the monitoring, long-term monitoring is an important part of the remedy, both sediment as well as upland.
Yeah, so the seeps are the dark, and those are really the target areas with what I would call the active, the removable. And then we do the cap in that area to try to like keep everything that's deeper, and then it allows the lesser contaminated sheen areas to recover.
Just because I'm curious and I hate to keep going on about it, what does your cap consist of that is gonna, what is it like a concrete type pour that caps it, or is it like, what material is this?
Yeah, so that would be fleshed out in remedial design, but typically a sediment cap is going to be readily available, we call it isolation layer material. So it's going to be Columbia River navigational channel maintenance dredge sand. So clean sand that comes out of the channel, ideally. From McCormick and Baxter, we had an upland source, so it was pre-dredged and it was stockpiled down by the Dyno Bell site. And it got loaded on the barges and hauled up to McCormick and Baxter. So it could be an active maintenance dredge project that's just pumping it right in there, or it could be something that's pre-stockpiled. It's going to be a source of typically sand. It's really easy to work with. It's easy to place. You can telebelt it out, kind of distance beyond where it can normally reach. Can be placed by a barge. It's really easy to work with. And then that sand is not stable in where you have waves and other hydraulic energy. So typically there would be some kind of an armoring layer, and that gets designed during remedial design, how big the armoring needs to be, whether it's, small cobbles or, bigger, riprap kind of stuff.
Understood. Okay, that was my question, because glacier is just.
Added to this.
That would be the reactive piece of it, carbon or another organophilic clay is another form of reactive material that binds the creosote that still wants to flow, that we haven't quite been able to dig out. So there might be some continued seeps or sheening, and that reactive components of the cap will absorb that material.
And I've also seen some really neat armoring stuff where they're starting to create it where it's stuff that's more easily to remove so that you can do maintenance on the cap. So that's part of design, but it's essentially sand, carbon, and something to keep it in place kind of activity there.
So in 2018, we had Jennifer Purcell sitting right where you're sitting now and telling us that we had reached the finish line. And we haven't. We were told we were there, and then somebody saw a sheen in the river. It all stopped. We went back.
Yeah.
And we are just now getting to this point again.
Yeah.
What are the chances that somebody's going to go out there and find another sheen?
Well, I would say never, but the areas that you're looking at right now, area 1, upland area 1, that is where if you look at the old maps or if you didn't have the labels on there, you would see all the tanks, the building, the creosote treatment. And then the reason why we saw the sheen at Dock 2, which is the one that triggered all of this, is there used to be an underground pipeline from the tank to the dock, and there was a big tank at the dock. And so I think it was just nobody ever picked up on that when they were doing the other work. And
I can add, the sediments were not well characterized.
Yeah,
And it was actually sediments were not well characterized. To be honest, in my view, that was the fault of the port's contractor. DEQ should have caught it as well, so it goes both ways. The sediment sheen was discovered in about 2006 or 7, if I remember right. And that caused a big pause in the project. There was disagreements, accusations that DEQ was moving the goalpost. What it was is we discovered something that we didn't know about. And it's a good thing we discovered it because we had built the remedy and not known this, it wouldn't have been protective. And it's really expensive to go back and redo remedies. I have done a lot of sediment sites, and my view is the site is well characterized. We know where the hot spots are, and we're comfortable that the non-hot spot areas can be addressed through the natural processes. So I feel that this site has a very low likelihood of causing a major surprise. There's going to be new information, there's going to be little things here and there, but I think we're going to be well within the cost estimate range, the uncertainty of the cost estimate and feasibility study, which is a plus 50% to minus 30%, right? There is some flex there that's built into the cost estimate, not counting major inflation. But I think that we've got a good handle on this site.
Yeah,
I mean,
2018 was the Dock 2 sheen that was discovered during a site walk. And that area, we didn't stop the project to characterize it as much as it needs to be. We pushed that off for design. So we will be looking at that harder. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the upland facility locations and where you would expect to see contamination based on the operations that were there, 60 years ago now. I don't know that there's anywhere else to really find something.
It's interesting if you, the lease for Blue Heron has the record of decision attached in the packet. And there's a lot of the old imagery that shows the overlay of where the buildings and some of the tanks were and stuff. So it was a pretty nasty site.
Yeah, the aerial photos are pretty, and the photos of the plant and seeing how all the structures are on the piers and the docks, and you don't really get a true feel for how developed it really was. So it's pretty interesting to see the photos.
Commissioner Fawcett, do you have any questions?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, did I miss?
Anyone else?
Did anything else left out? Okay. Sorry, I just had to check.
This has been really
Yes, thank you very
very,
much.
very edifying.
And I'm always happy to come out and talk to you guys some more at any point. So, Elliot can let me know when you'd like to have a repeat visit and another update, or, I'm always happy to come out.
Well, I think after we do the first step, that would be a really good thing to have another conversation.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get that paperwork. We can do our internal review, and then we can have a better framework for the funding agreement to come back with you guys and just kind of see if you're comfortable with the language that we all come up with. So.
Are you involved in negotiation on, does that get turned over to somebody else?
So I pretty much do a lot of the lifting of it, and then I go to my attorney who's with DOJ, obviously, and go, what do you think of this? And then I say, can you talk to Bob? And you guys.
Pending the legalities, but the concepts and we'll be working.
Yeah, the concepts are coming from me.
You promise not to leave or to move to another department?
Just say we move fast. We promise not to leave, please.
55 this July, so you can do the math on how long you can expect me to hang around. So I'll promise 5 years, not anything goes after that. Any other questions, concerns, or?
Thank you for the information. That was great.
Our pleasure.
I did think of one thing we should touch upon, was talked yesterday just to define a little precisely O&M versus what we came up with the term of capital maintenance cost.
Yes, I like that.
The thing to touch.
Okay. So, so once we build it, then as we've kind of touched on, it has to be maintained forever, 100 years. or whatever. And that does come with a cost, it's, annual monitoring, it's, if something happens. We did talk a lot about the port being able to actually budget for these tasks and do it, but then there's always the risk of like a catastrophic event, a catastrophic failure, or something like that, that might be outside of the port's realm to fund. And having an opener that, in the event of a catastrophic failure of like a cap or something like that, we can re-engage with DQ to see what is your funding, health, and then if it's something that we need to come in and do. Is that what you were? Yeah. To do. So I think that's part of this funding agreement is also just kind of, I'm trying to keep it broad enough, but narrow enough that we all are comfortable with what we're agreeing to, but also trying to outline that, if there's a $10 million failure, we have room to talk and figure out how we can make that happen versus saying, oh yeah, you got a $10 million hit 20 years down the line that you can't plan for. So we're just trying to keep this moving and all still feel comfortable with it. So,
Sounds like we're heading in the right direction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
all right. Well, thank you very much for your time. It was great to meet you guys in person.
Thank you for driving me out here.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always nice to drive along the water.
Yes, that's true.
If I.
No, not. Oh, absolutely. Have a good visit.
Thank you.
Okay. Next,
Excuse me, Commissioner Buble, we have Laura Maffei on the line, our outside counsel on this issue. My thought for tonight is that she was gonna possibly stick around for executive session, but I don't think we need that tonight.
Okay.
So we can probably let Laura loose if you're out there.
I'm
Laura.
still here listening attentively. That's fine. I'm happy to skip executive session and Bob and Elliot, I'll be back in touch, I assume shortly to work on some of these projects with you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
okay, next, the consideration of resolution 2024-16 approving airport payment maintenance bid. Lacey?
Good evening. I'm here, recommending that you accept the bid for the West Side Pavement Maintenance contract. As you know, the West Side Pavement Maintenance is an FAA grant, and we are in the final, because we're approaching the final construction phase to fix the cracks and seals and restripe the side. Do you guys have any questions about the bid or?
Nope, move to approve resolution 2024-16.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Sorber. Or a tie.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Lacey, have we heard anything about the health status of the fellow who was involved in that plane crash?
The last I heard is he's stable.
Is he still in the hospital?
I don't know that, I don't have the answer, but yeah, I haven't talked to Brian Yablon recently, and we met with Transwestern yesterday, Amy and I, and they didn't mention anything different, so.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Executive Director's report.
Thank you, commissioners, and good evening again. I wanted to first point out that two slight changes in duties here at the board. Lacey Tolles is now our airport manager and Elizabeth Milliger is now our property manager. So they've been sitting in roles doing many of the tasks associated with that. And Amy and I talked about getting the airport mostly out of Amy's off of her plate. And Lacey was agreeable to do that, and it fits well with her droning and some of the other things that she's been working on. So we're happy there. And then Elizabeth's been working well in the ops team with Miriam, who is, I think Miriam joined us by phone, but And we've been really happy with the work that Elizabeth's been doing too. So congratulations to them both.
Yes, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. My calendar's there. I don't know if there you have any questions on it. One thing, I did send you guys an email for our ordinance about the expenditure for the new camera system. Hopefully you read into some of that with, we've had challenges with what we've had, the security system, trying to produce video records for law enforcement and just being like one day outside of our retention window as far as the MVR was concerned, as far as the storage. So this will streamline things tremendously, give us better technology and also allow us to expand. So this is going to be a major admin save for us. And like I said, it allows us to expand. We've had ideas, one to add cameras at the airport. This is plug and play. It's cloud-based. So that becomes a lot less difficult. Fort Westward as well. So there's options for us to add cameras down the road, but this gets us 29 cameras, I believe, and some, the cloud-based and the support and installation. So it's a really good deal. My numbers are compared to when I was at the Port of Klamath working security, and I was really actually surprised that we were getting this much for what we were, for this price. So obviously there's a lot more players now. Technology's improved and costs have come down, similar to the VCR syndrome we had many years ago. As you heard Kevin Jones say, Fort Westward, we're kind of standing by. There hasn't been any activity, no trains scheduled yet and no vessels scheduled yet. We did have some action at the Classic Night Business Center. Unfortunately, might have been over the weekend. Somebody got in, broke windows, set off some fire extinguishers. Came back, we think, last night and went upstairs and played around and did some stuff. So Elliot will be filing a police report on that, and we may be considering some security cameras there. And oftentimes it may be after the fact stuff, but once we learn this technology, there may be alerts that can be set up and different kind of things that'll give us some warning or at least tell us there's something happening. Frustrating because the windows broke inside the building on the floor, second floor. Just a mess with the fire extinguisher stuff. So, and as some of you may have heard, the Multnomah Industrial Park on June 21st, we had a witness see a blue Ford Eclipse run into the main gate keypad, back up and drive away. Ops contacted St. Helens Police, and the matter is still under investigation. Two more. I put one here. There's actually two more community events this summer. We got the movies on the 9th, August 9th. Movies in the park at Scappoose. So Gina's going to set up for that. And then the very next day we got the Columbia City Celebration. I know Commissioner Ward, you signed up to come and help us, and thanks for your staff that are coming out for that. That was fun last year. As you see here, I have included the manager reports, and looking at them, it really makes mine look less nice. So I may have some formatting changes to my report to it, but if you would, please look these over and
Nice.
One of the things I wanted to figure out is if it would make sense for me to try to get this to you guys sooner. So when you get here, you can ask me questions. Okay. We'll work on getting this out ahead of time, like Monday of the commission.
Yes, that'd be great.
As you can see, there's a lot of stuff on there. And of course, Bob and I went through there to make sure everything was okay to share. So there's nothing too sensitive there.
Interesting, though, I'm looking at Amy's where she talks about negotiating leasing agreement with Brendan Clark. There's no date on it. So will we be getting these and they'll all be, current, or should these be dated?
Well, mine's.
Well, I mean, the report has a date.
Oh, yeah.
Do it Thursday or less.
Okay, that's pretty much what I'm looking for.
But like newest from Thursday.
Okay.
Put together Friday.
So we still don't have a signed agreement.
We have a sale agreement, but the leasing agreement is that was waiting on that policy.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Close, we're close.
And I'm sure your phone's been ringing off the hook, right?
I did see if we had two interested parties, then,
Get out of here.
but I don't know.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions on any of the items here and I still owe a couple of you guys a lunch get together, so I'll be looking to get those set up to. I think Robert was talking about more talking about review stuff still that I know we had the collective one, but the idea was for me to get together with each one individually, so I'll get those scheduled. Busy summer. I am taking off a couple weeks of Thursday and Friday, so I'll be taking a long weekend on the 8th and 9th. And are there any questions?
That's good.
I don't have any questions. Commissioner report?
Reports, yeah.
I would only say that the discussion on the Clatskanie Business Center carries on with the fire district, but that's a personnel challenges ahead that it's not moving fast, but we're still working on that. And I think it's something we can put together, but
It's still alive.
our fire chief's retiring after 43 years. That does change things a little bit.
Yeah.
Not in any way adversely affecting it, just our ability to get things done. We're going through a search process and you all know how fun those are. That's it.
Glad I was able to make tonight for the DEQ info. I found it, seems like there may be, as Nancy said, light at the end of the tunnel. I know that was said before in 18, but, it's looking like we're real close now. So hopefully it sounded like we're gonna maybe get some help with this and hopefully we can put our heads together and figure out a way to get this done in a timely manner.
Yes, wouldn't that be nice? Yes. So I attended the Northwest Environmental Business Council meeting last week. And the reason I was interested is they had staff from DEQ there. And I mean, they had all the department heads and each department head gave us a report on what it is they do and what they're currently working on. And I found it to be very interesting that I can't remember the gal's name. I've got it written down though. And she was the one who said, you all may be aware of the next project out in Columbia County and that it does look like that is moving forward well and should be approved anytime soon. Which I found to be very surprising that that's what she said. So there you go. What was the other thing there was something else that I was involved in, but I can't think of it right now. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Fawcett?
No update for me today.
And I don't have much either, so. Okay, so is there anything we are not going to go into executive session then? Is that?
That is your pleasure. If you'd like to, we can. If there's anything you'd like to discuss while the matters.
Yes,
Fine.
I absolutely would. Yeah, definitely.
But, okay.
Yeah. Nothing enormous, but yeah, as long as we're here and it's all regarding DEQ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Read the script.
I gotta get it. But no, if we need to do it, let's do it.
Brian?
I don't particularly need to, but if everybody is wanting to, I'll stick around.
All right, the Port of Columbia County will now meet an executive session pursuant to ORS 192660 subsection 2F to consult with Port General Counsel regarding privileged exempt from disclosure information. Representatives of news media and designated staff are allowed to attend. Representatives of news media are specifically directed not to report on discussions in this or any executive session. The board will return to open session after the executive session and will announce any decisions that are the result of the discussions held in executive session. We don't expect any decisions at all. Any persons excluded from executive session are welcome to return to open session when it is resumed. Thank you, Ron. And we just need a minute to transfer